South Korea's foreign ministry has summoned the Russian ambassador to Seoul in protest over the possible deployment of North Korean soldiers to fight against Ukraine. Reports of the development come months after Moscow and Pyongyang signed a military deal, Russia's latest in a series of security agreements. Our next report looks at the web of the Kremlin's military partners.
For 24 years, Russian President Vladimir Putin steered clear of Pyongyang. But in June of this year, the stars aligned. Putin was back in North Korea's capital city with leader Kim Jong-un in need of more firepower for Russia's war against Ukraine. Then, earlier this month came a meeting with Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Putin cementing ties with a country that's helped push his full-scale Ukraine invasion since almost the beginning. And then there's his relationship with China's Xi Jinping, whose country has helped Russia less directly by providing critical components for weaponry and by not opposing Putin on Ukraine. All told, together, they've been recently dubbed the CRINKs, C for China, then Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So how do the CRINKs alliances work? Well, North Korea has gained a mutual defense pact with Moscow, a deal that even South Korea's defense ministry surmises has led to North Korean troops being ready to fight in Ukraine. Tehran, meanwhile, has provided drones by the thousands to Russia, plus now ballistic missiles, all to fuel Moscow's war and, for Iran's sake, keep the West heavily occupied. Powerful China sits in the middle of the CRINKs, flouting the West with stronger ties to Russia, maintaining its long-held base of support for its autocratic neighbor North Korea. Tehran is also making an effort with the reclusive state's leader, Kim Jong-un, as well as China's Xi Jinping. For Beijing, its links to the other CRINKs are helping to guide its increased pressure on Taiwan, even, it's said, with Russian-style disinformation tactics. And together, analysts say all four CRINKs are working to upset the global balance.
Well, as we mentioned, one of the newer links in Russia's strategic network is with North Korea. For more on this, journalist Fabian Kretschmer joins us now from Seoul. Fabian, tell us more about South Korea's claim that North Korea is sending soldiers to fight in Ukraine for Russia. What evidence of that is Seoul offering?
Yeah, there is basically also empirical evidence. Some of it has been published by the National Intelligence Service. So first of all, satellite images. Some of the photos that were published are supposed to show Russian ships that deploy North Korean soldiers towards Russia. And secondly, the NIS in South Korea claimed that it has developed a face recognition software that has been used in collaboration also by the Ukrainian Secret Service, and that helped identify soldiers on the ground. And also one of the claims is that not only has North Korea decided to send more than 10,000 soldiers to Russia, but that more than 1,500 soldiers have already been deployed to Russia, to the far east of Russia. And actually, in the recent days, one government affiliation of the Ukrainian government has published a video that is supposed to show North Korean soldiers getting issued Russian uniforms. And so far, I would say the evidence or the burden of evidence is relatively strong, but can we call it a final evidence? Probably not, but actually the government here in Seoul is convinced that this is a fact, that this is not only strong indicators, but that really North Korea has already begun deploying soldiers to Russia.
And this comes on top, of course, of what's believed to be massive deliveries of artillery shells by North Korea to Russia. So Russia's war effort seems to be benefiting from its pact with North Korea. But what about the bigger picture, Fabian? How is that pact likely to affect the balance of power in East Asia?
So that is really a crucial question, because if North Korea assists Russia in fighting against Ukraine, that does not only change the power dynamics in the battlefield in Ukraine, but also it has huge implications here in East Asia. So especially for South Korea, it's really a big red line that North Korea now is sending soldiers to Russia. Why? Because the big question is, what is North Korea getting in return? We already know that North Korea is, of course, getting foreign currencies by helping out Russia, and it also gets security guarantees. You mentioned the military deal that Kim Jong-un and Putin have signed, and that basically implies also a security guarantee, saying that if one of the two states is getting attacked by a third party, by a third state, then either North Korea or Russia has to help each other. But it would be possible that Russia would also send missile technology to North Korea, or possibly even nuclear technology. That would be extremely concerning. And then, of course, it is very important how China will react. It's very noticeable that so far China has stayed silent. There's not really a strong criticism against North Korea. It is also possible that maybe China condones the move by North Korea. We don't know yet, but it really changes a lot, and basically also changes the power balance here in the region.
It's certainly getting a lot of attention. Is there any indication, Fabian, of how Seoul and its allies are planning to respond to this development? We're just hearing from the NATO Secretary General saying that if North Korea is indeed sending troops to Ukraine, that would be a significant escalation.
Yeah, so they say if. So I think why everyone is reacting relatively cautious is that, while South Korea has said that North Korea has already started to deploy soldiers, those soldiers are not, at least not in a large scale, in the battleground yet. So they're getting prepared in the far east of Russia. That's what South Korea is saying. But there's also another reason why South Korea is really very cautious, because the situation here in the Korean Peninsula is already very tense. North and South are engaging every day in methods of psychological warfare, and both sides are, I think, also concerned about possible escalations here. So the first reaction today was that the South Korean Foreign Ministry has called in the Russian ambassador. But then there's a lot of rhetoric, but we don't know yet whether further steps will be taken. And one possible step could be that South Korea will, overthink its position of not sending weapons to Ukraine. Maybe this red line could change to a change of position.
Fabian, thanks for filling us in there. That was journalist Fabian Kretschmer in Seoul, South Korea.
Well, for more now, I'm joined by Velina Tchakarova. She's an expert in geopolitics with a special focus on Russia and China. She runs an Austria-based geopolitical consulting company. It's good to have you with us today. How would you describe the cooperation between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea? I mean, are we looking at a close alliance that deserves the acronym CRINKs?
Well, it is an opportunistic alignment of authoritarian, semi-authoritarian, some even dictatorial regimes, each with their own geopolitical and geoeconomic goals. The ultimate goal of which is to challenge and erode the current global order, that is the Western rules-based order. At the core of this opportunistic alignment lies actually the modus vivendi of strategic coordination between China and Russia, the so-called Dragon Bear we've been covering on your show and various other shows for the last 2.5 years. And this is the centrifugal force that actually brings about all these other, bilateral, minilateral alignments and partnerships with countries like North Korea and Iran.
Yeah, and when you look at these countries, who needs whom the most in this constellation?
Russia, facing the economic and political isolation due to the most comprehensive Western sanctions, needs China the most to maintain its geopolitical and geoeconomic stance. China, on the other hand, views this modus vivendi with Russia very pragmatically. It benefits from the Russian commodities, from the agricultural products, as well as the supply chains, the alternative supply chains in the case of future American blockade. Whereas, North Korea and Iran deliver specific, services, specific support. In the case of Russia, it's more about the military support. And in return, they receive security guarantees from Russia, as well as regional stability when it comes to the Middle East or, in the situation of North Korea with South Korea. When it comes to China, it is, of course, about much more than that, because China is a systemic player. It's the systemic rival of United States, so it needs this kind of partnerships to, create this important geopolitical counterweight to United States and its allies in Europe and the Indo-Pacific.
And is that what the ultimate goal of this alliance is for a power like China to have this leverage, or do you see this group, the CRINKs, ultimately hoping to end the global order as we know it, which is, in their eyes, Western dominated?
It's a twofold strategy. On the one hand, it is about undermining the current global order because it's still very much Western oriented, with all the relevant international organizations, norms, standards, rules, ideology, values-based partnerships. But at the same time, they are creating alternative regional organizations and structures which isolate the Western partners. So it's a twofold strategy here with organizations such as the Shanghai Organization for Cooperation, or let's say BRICS. They have also, instruments, platforms to engage with other partners from the so-called Global South to actually create also different narrative, different understanding and reading of how the global order should look like and should be shaped in the future. So I would go for both. So that is why we do not know for sure whether we talk about Cold War 2.0 context right now between the West on the one hand and the Dragon Bear on the other, with their partners, their alliances, and their organizations and structures, or we talk about volatile multipolarity, a chaotic, volatile global order, transitional period where everybody is more or less, kind of navigating and trying to align based on interests.
Yeah. Back to the future, as it were. Geopolitical analyst Velina Tchakarova, we appreciate your time and your insights today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.